We'll start here. Want to welcome everybody here today. We've got a nice crowd already, and I'm sure there'll be some more come filtering in. But I want to welcome you to the historical marker designation ceremony for the old red school building and the rock wall. My name's Pat Turner, and Laurie asked me to say a few things about my experience in the Kennedale school, but those were censored out. So, not really, but I would like to set back a little bit in your mind of some of the things that's gone on in this school system here and the history that it has. And my experience with it really started the day after the end of the Second World War. On September the 3rd, 1945, a general from the Japanese Army surrendered all of the troops that they had in the Philippines to a general from the United States Army, and that signified the final surrender of the Japanese in the Second World War. I think it's also appropriate to note that the Kennedale School was represented at that location because a good friend of mine was stationed at that same Philippine base in 1945, and he witnessed what took place when the Japanese plane came in, landed, and the generals got together and signed their papers. And that was Doug Cooper. Doug's two sons are here, Melvin and Kenneth. I saw back over here today. I think we ought to hold on to that history. Kennedale was represented at the signing of the end of the Second World War. Again, September the 3rd, 1945. Coincidentally, the next day, September the 4th, 1945, Carolyn Coker Williamson and I started to school in this two-story brick building that used to be behind this wall. A little bit later that year, Kenneth Doherty came in and joined that class. And we came through Kennedale for several years, some of us longer than others. And Kenneth is the first student who was in that class in 1945 that went on through and graduated in the very first graduating class of Kennedale in 1957. Good for you, Kenneth. I want to tell you a little bit about that school building. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you, many of you probably are not. But it was, of course, as the picture showed, it was a two-story brick building. My understanding is that the brick came from the brickyard in Kennedale. I don't know that that's the case, but that's what I've heard. But that building was pretty darn basic. We had a lunchroom on the first floor, downstairs on the left. There were about 7 classrooms in the school in both floors. There were 9 teachers, and Mr. Arthur was the superintendent, making the 10th instructor, if you will. About 240 students in those 7 classes, because that's the only thing that was here, was that one building with 7 rooms in it for 240 kids. Well, that's not exactly true. Out back, toward that brown building, we can see there was 2 outhouses. Well, hey, listen, that's pretty important. There wasn't any running water in that part for restrooms. About where this white building is sitting, a little farther over closer to the street, there was a well. That well was used not only for the school, but it was used for the community, because we didn't have water in Kennedale back then, and you had to draw your water from somewhere else and haul it home in glass jugs and so forth. And the other thing, of course, structure-wise, was the wall that we're here to dedicate today. The heat in that building was provided by coal-burning stoves. Each room had their, I don't know, when I was a first grader, they were this big. It probably was 12, 14 inch in diameter, but it's coal-burning stove. The coal was stored underneath the building. We always called it the basement. Really wasn't a basement in it. The building was just built on concrete piers. Probably had 4 or 5 foot clearance under part of it, and they'd shoot the coal down there out of the trucks, and then if you were a lucky one in the class, the teacher let you take the coal bucket and go down in the basement and get the coal and bring it up to stoke the fire. I got to do that once or twice. I thought I was real special. It let me get out of class. It was also an area boarded off in between some of those pillars, and that was the storage place for the school supplies. Primarily it was for lunchroom supplies. We had an awful lot of canned milk and powdered canned milk and powdered eggs. Of course, again, that was during the wartime, and that's what you had. The walls in the upstairs, the second floor, were hinged at the top, and you could pull those walls up and hook them, and it would open up the whole upstairs, and it was an auditorium with a stage in it. And each year, every class would put on a play in that auditorium. There wasn't a whole lot of entertainment in Kennedale back then. If you wasn't involved in something at school or at church, you were probably home milking the cows or something like that. Carolyn mentioned last night when we were talking about this that there were some other things. On this side of the school building, there were some monkey bars. There was a swing right out about here, big long chains that hung down on a big A-frame type swing set. And there was some kind of a, I don't know, I'd call it a maypole type swing that had chains hanging on it that you could run around and swing on. That was our playground. That was all of the sports activity that we had. There wasn't a football field back then. There wasn't a gym. As a matter of fact, I don't even think there was football in the school. Again, it was pretty basic. Actually, things were pretty simple in Kennedale in September of 1945. Tonight, our speaker from the, let me get my program out here. I don't want to get this wrong, because I did that a while ago. From the Tarrant County Historical Commission is Dr. Richard Seltzer. Richard.
Back here in the back of the tent, I promised I would keep my remarks short and sweet. I'm here to represent the Tarrant County Historical Commission. And while I'm proud to do that, this isn't really about the Tarrant County Historical Commission. It's really about Rachel Roberts and Elizabeth Patel, who did the work. And if you'll indulge me just for a moment, the work that goes into these historic markers is done locally. And paying for it is done locally. Things have to be approved by Austin, the state of Texas. But the work and the money comes from right here. Don't be fooled. This marker is property of the state of Texas. Sounds impressive. That means if you deface it, tear it down, or whatever, the state of Texas supposedly will come after you, but they didn't do the work. It takes a year or more from the time people come up with an idea, like want to put a historic marker up, to get something done. It's got to be written, it's got to go through the Tarrant County Historical Commission, it's got to be approved through the commission and sent to Austin, where it's approved again, and you'll understand and not be insulted, I hope, if I tell you that it's not a high priority in Austin. Not that they don't love Kennedale, but history in general is down the list of things that people worry about in Austin. So it's approved there, then it's got to be made into a marker, and the people here, I'm not sure which of you all actually dug in your pocket and donated, but came up with the money to get this made and to get it put up. So don't think this is something that the Tarrant County Historical Commission or Austin comes up with and researches and writes and makes a metal thing and puts it up. The work is right here. And where's Beth? Elizabeth? Right here. These are the two people you need to recognize and clap for. So please give them a hand. And since some of you are melting into puddles, and I promised that to be short, I will turn it back over to you for the next part of the program.
I will deal with you later. Okay? Well, it's my privilege to be able to stand here as actually a student that graduated, a employee for 33 years, and a school board trustee for 14 years, recently retired. Julie Webb, I would like for you all to meet her on your way out. She took my place on the school board. She's a mom, and she's going to do a fantastic job on the school board. But it's a privilege for me to just say thank you to, I know you for sure had so much to do. When she first came to the board and asked what we thought, of course I was ecstatic. I was so proud and so excited because I knew something about this rock wall that no one else did. And so I really appreciate all your effort and all your work. But, you know, there's not a lot of structures standing in Kennedale anymore that was 75 years or more. This rock wall happens to be one of them. We all have memories of this. Some of you went to school, like Pat said, in the building that stood here. And I actually used to eat my lunch on the steps because I stayed with a lady that brought our lunch in a station wagon because she didn't like the school food. So we would sit on the steps and eat lunch. A lot of you have had your pictures made on the wall, put your initials in the wall. A lot of people have memories of the wall. And so when it was time to do this, I was just extremely proud that I was a part of this historic event. And there's really not anything to say that hasn't already been said. So I appreciate you for letting me be part of this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Turner. Your talking is a lot more better than mine, so maybe you should continue, and maybe you should shut up.
You wouldn't want to know what I know about history. 1945 was all of it.
Well, like I said, my name is Mike Gross, and I've been teaching history over a quarter of a century here in Kennedale. I'm not a native of Kennedale, but I do love Kennedale. Kennedale has been very good to me and my family. Kennedale is a great place to raise your child, like I have. There is nothing like the feel of a small rural community to make one feel at home. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Kennedale Historical Society and Kennedale ISD for inviting me to speak here today. I have been a member of the Kennedale Historical Society for a few years now. I cannot begin to tell you what a fine group it is, and that the people are top-notch, outstanding people who has been a great pleasure to get to know and share the passion that history is for us. As I said, I've been teaching here for the last 25 years. My usual audience is a group of 8th graders, and I'm proud to say that some of them are here today. I am used to the 8th grade audience, so if I ask you to spit out your gum and put away your cell phone, just remember old habits are hard to break, especially for this old teacher. My topic today is the importance of history and its preservation. And I'm talking in front of a group who already knows this fact, as well as I do. You folks love history. You have demonstrated it by your attendance at this important and historical moment in the history of our beloved city. You realize more than anybody else that our town's history must be preserved. You guys are my heroes. History is about life. It's about the very blood that runs through our veins. It's not only just about dates and dusty old textbooks. It's the greatest story ever told. I tell my students that if you think history is boring and you have taken my class, then I have failed my job. History is the greatest story ever told. History has all the elements of a great novel. Drama, romance, greed, love, human nature at some of the most critical times in an individual's life or in their community or in their country's existence. History is about values, morals, and character. We study history to emulate the wise decisions that people have made under pressure situations and to avoid unwise decisions made in those same situations. In our country, in our form of government, a democracy, I believe that knowledge of history is vital to our existence. We, the citizens of this great nation, have tremendous responsibilities. For in a democracy, we, the people, select our leaders. And how can we pick great leaders unless we have studied great leaders from the past? We have to be knowledgeable in order to pick the finest. I will suggest that this is not easy to pick the wise ones. Only a citizen that is knowledgeable in history can make the best decisions for his country and his community. History can greatly help us. The past can teach us great things if we are willing to listen. I myself am a deeply flawed person with many, many faults. But I can tell you without a doubt that my life has been enriched and benefited from my study of history. I often tell my students about a movie they are all familiar with, Lion King, and its lesson about the circle of life, how we are not that much different from the people of the past. We go through the same journey, the circle of life. We're born, we go to school, we all go through puberty. 8th graders get a little uncomfortable when you talk about puberty. Then most of us get married, have children, then grandchildren, and then we die. The circle of life has been going on for countless generations. Wouldn't we all benefit by studying the lives of those who came before us? We can make our own lives more meaningful. History is not something obscure or unimportant. Steve Barry, who started the foundation History Matters, says, history plays a role in our everyday lives. We learn from our past in order to achieve greater influence over our future. History serves as a model, not only of who we are and what we are to be, but also we learn what to champion and what to avoid. That quote and the importance of history leads me to the work of the Kennedale Historical Society and other fine organizations like them to preserve, protect, and treasure our past. I have personally witnessed the incredible treasures preserved within libraries, public buildings, historical societies, museums, and universities. Do you know the emotional charge I received when I got to actually hold a document of George Washington's at Mount Vernon? Or the eerie feeling I got when I was at Gettysburg when I walked the field that was part of Pickett's charge? Or when I go to a small rural library where the records of families who settled that land years ago, like the families of the Little, Cooper, Sublett, Middleton, and the Rogers families here in Kennedale. I get connected, and the impressions are everlasting. These are records of who we are and what we are. Sadly, though, most times we lose these treasures, not by fire, flood, or willful destruction, but by simple neglect. The reality in our communities is that our local history disappears as a victim of neglect and indifference. Another killer of our heritage is suburban sprawl and roadside development, which makes everything look the same. It becomes important for communities to keep their identities intact. The amount of history that we lose is astounding, and the threat of losing more of our history is constant and ongoing. That's why I say, thank God for the Kennedale Historical Society. Their mission is to promote the rich history of our fair town through education and preservation. They have made history come alive. A couple of years ago, when my students volunteered with the African American Cemetery cleanup, I think they learned and valued history far more than I will ever be able to teach them. Kennedale Historical's concerted effort to preserve our local heritage is a vital link to our cultural, educational, aesthetic, and inspirational legacies. All the things that make us who we are. Kennedale Historical Society knows that preserving history is important to building a healthy community. They know that a community that respects history respects itself. That the preservation of history, through the preservation of sites important to it, can help a community realize its strengths and use them to improve the lives of all its residents. Kennedale Historical Society are thoughtful stewards of our past. It is hard work. It is a job worth doing, and they are doing a great job at it. They are not just hanging on to yesterday, they are building tomorrow. That is why I'm a proud member of the Kennedale Historical Society, and I hope you'll consider becoming a member too. Let's all take in this beautiful marker today and enjoy the significance of this day and of this site, and take pride in our beloved city and its wonderful heritage. Thank you.